I have personally witnessed the power of influences in my life on a few different occasions, both in the positive and in the negative. when I was in when I was in high school, I had a handful of friends that I would sort of label as bad influences, right? So these friends, the primary activity that we did when we got together is we either smoked weed or we drank. And this was like the activity to do, right? It was like what we considered to be fun and interesting and sort of exciting. And it's tough to say how much of it was my idea. My perception now as an adult is that it seemed like most of this was driven by them, with me saying, yeah, okay, that seems like the thing to do. In contrast, I had a group of friends when I briefly went to college that I would say were excellent influences on me. And I feel really grateful to have become friends with them. It was largely it was a couple of guys who were on the cross country team. And with those friends, we started a mastermind group called Junto, where we met weekly, we read personal development books, we set goals, we held each other accountable to taking action on our goals. And it was a worlds of difference from, the friends that I had in high school. And at one point, I reached a breaking point with my friends in high school. It was after we had graduated, and we were having a party at a hotel. One of the friends' uncles had gotten us a hotel room, and it was essentially just a 3-day weekend. I don't know what I would call it, a bender, right? Where we were just getting drunk and fooling around, and just up to no good. And I stayed there one night, and then I stayed there a second night, and then on Sunday morning I just woke up at like 5 a.m. and I sort of had like a coming to my senses moment, right, where I was like, what am I doing here? Who am I with? Why am I doing this? I feel awful. I feel like this whole weekend has been a waste of my time. I feel like, am I heading in the direction of growth, or am I heading in the direction of vice? And I felt like I was really heading in the direction of vice. And I actually stopped being friends with all those people that day. I just got up, I left without saying goodbye, and that was sort of like relationship over. And I think they invited me to a couple of additional things, and maybe I went to 1 or 2 events, but I really had a break then. And it's kind of interesting, and I feel like maybe kind of rare to have like an official break like that, right? Like oftentimes people could just kind of grow apart. But that was sort of my story of my quote unquote bad influence friends in high school. My name is Ryan Weiss. This is the Ryan Weiss Show. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm doing a video series here that I'm calling Lessons for My Kids, where I'm recording one lesson per week that I think it's important for my kids to learn by the time they become adults. And I'm recording these lessons so that if something were to happen to me, my kids would still have these lessons recorded somewhere that they could learn. And today's lesson that I want to share with you is to choose your influences carefully. Choose your relationships carefully. I shared that story about some good influences I had and some bad influences that I had. And I think a lesson that I've really internalized and that I have found to be true is that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. I have learned that to be true through consistent life experience, I guess, and through seeing myself change in ways that I hadn't necessarily consciously decided. And that's what can be so, I want to say, great and so terrible about the way that people influence you, right? If you are not conscious about the way that people are influencing you, it can be great if you're around a great group of guys, right? They'll just sort of unconsciously drag you up. But if you're around people who are not positive influences, they can really unconsciously drag you down. Now, one of the habits that I have is I consciously assess my influences annually. I'll drop a link in the description below, but I use the influence assessment tool within the Compound Effect and the Living Your Best Year Ever journal, which has you actually write out, who do I think is influencing me in the positive direction? Who do I think is influencing me in the negative direction? Who do I want to expand my relationship with? Who do I want to contract my relationship with? And consciously thinking about your influences this way, I think, is a really powerful mechanism because influences are so easy to just put on autopilot. Like, it's so easy to have your friends get into a comfort zone and just say, like, okay, this is who I have relationships with. And it's a lot harder and more uncomfortable to sort of consciously decide who you are choosing to have a relationship with. Now, this is kind of an interesting topic for me, right? Because I really value loyalty. And one of the challenges that I have with reducing my relationship with people who, I perceive to be a negative influence is feeling like I'm being disloyal to that person. From time to time, I have been around people who I feel like are sort of transactional with their relationships. And that's another thing that I'm sort of trying to avoid, which is, approaching my relationship with other people and saying, like, what am I getting out of this? How are you helping me? How are you influencing me? And sort of like, turning the relationship into a transaction. I want to try to avoid doing that. I also want to avoid sort of being too two-dimensional with my thinking. Like, it's very difficult to label someone as like, this person is exclusively a good influence, this person is exclusively a bad influence. People are complex, and oftentimes people have different levels of influence in different parts of their life. I know one of the things that I've struggled with, right, is having friends that I perceive to be bad influences on me, but having them be a ton of fun. My friends in high school, who I sort of perceived to be bad influences, were so fun. We had so much fun just laughing and fooling around and just being silly together. And oftentimes they were extremely funny. And so there's a balance to be struck here, right? You don't want to be militant in choosing your influences. You don't want to say you're being cut off because you don't have the level of physical health that I want, right? At the same time, you do need to protect yourself, right? And you do need to, I think, put yourself first and recognize that whether you like it or not, if you spend time with someone, they will start to influence you, right? Whether you like it or not, if you spend time with someone, they will begin to influence you. So just be really careful about who you're hanging out with, who you're friends with, who you're spending your weekends with, what activities you're doing with them. And if you recognize someone that has a habit or a behavior or a way of thinking that you don't really like or don't really want to emulate in yourself, just note that, keep that in mind. And then the other thing too that I would recommend considering is having some kind of nuance with your relationships, right? So I sort of put people in different buckets, right? I have my 5-minute friends, I have my 5-hour friends, I have my day friends, I have my 5-day friends, and I have my month friends, right? So there's people who I can spend 5 minutes with, no problem. We can have a little chit chat, and that's great and positive. And then that's really sort of my limit with that person before I feel like they're starting to impact me. Then I have my 5-hour friends, right? So I can hang out with this friend for a whole afternoon, go and get dinner at their house, have dinner together, and that's the limit to the relationship that I'm comfortable with. Then I have my whole day friends, right? We could go hiking for a whole day, have dinner together, spend a whole day together, and I've got no problem with the way that they're influencing me. And then so on and so forth. 5 days, maybe I would feel comfortable taking an extended vacation with this person. And then 1 month friend, maybe I'd feel comfortable like living with this person or having them consistently in, around my life, around my family, right? And so I encourage you to consider that. It's not like any relationship has to be all or nothing. And it's okay to promote people from reduced influence to expanded influence and demote people from expanded influence to reduced influence, depending on the effect that you think that they're having on you. I really want to emphasize balance in this analysis, and I want to encourage you to consider a few different factors here. Number one, loyalty. It's important to be loyal to people and not just cut them out because you think that they're, having some negative influence on you. I encourage you to consider balancing nuance, right? So just sort of gradually expanding associations and reducing associations. And then I want you to also balance this with understanding that people are nuanced, right? And nobody is exclusively a negative or positive influence. And some people can be really excellent influences in some categories, but really poor influences in others. I know a lot of business people that I really admire, and I want to develop their skills as a businessman, but I would not go anywhere near the marriage advice that they might have to offer, right? So you can apply some nuance in that way too. Now, one final piece of advice that I'll give you on selecting your influences is this sort of has to do with finding mentors and mentorship, as well as having sort of a natural way to develop your influences. And the suggestion that I'll make is that the relationships you have and the influences you have in your life will naturally be attracted or repelled by the action that you take. So for example, if you decide that you want to improve your physical health and you notice that the friend group that you've curated all have poor physical health, they're all fat or out of shape or whatever, it could be tempting to say, well, I'm going to cut these guys out because they're fat and I don't want to be fat anymore. I think, maybe you should do that. I think what could be a better strategy is for you yourself to start going to the gym, right? And the thing that's interesting is when you move into action like that, you naturally start to attract people who share that same habit, right? So, and the way this happens is really organically. So you'll just start going to the gym, you'll start seeing people regularly at the gym, you'll naturally start to have conversations with people at the gym, you'll start to connect with them, and then before you know it, you start to have friends at the gym, and you start to know people, and you get to know them, and you start to feel connected to those people. And then at the same time, that the time that you're spending in the gym developing these relationships is time that you're not spending with your unfit friends because they're not in the gym. And then eventually your unfit friends will have a decision of their own to make. They'll say, oh, okay, Ryan is starting to go to the gym. Is that an activity that I'm interested in? Because if I want to continue to have a relationship with Ryan, Ryan is now interested in talking about the gym, he's going to the gym, he's interested in physical health. I'm not. That gives us one less thing to talk about unless I also start to embrace that habit. So you see, it really starts to sort of naturally attract the kind of influences you want and naturally repel the influences that you don't want. And you can apply this movement into action in a bunch of other ways as well. A way that comes to mind for me, right, is I want to have influences in my life that positively support my desire to have a healthy, happy marriage. And so the way that I do this is I embrace being happily married. So I try to not talk poorly about my spouse. I tell people how much I enjoy being married. I encourage other people to be married. I spend time with my wife. We go on dates. And so this attitude and this action in my life naturally attracts other people who are happily married, right? Because we want to support each other in our happy marriages. And it naturally repels people who don't prioritize that or don't want to be married because they can't really relate to me about it, and they can't, they don't really want to talk to me about it. So it gives us sort of one less thing to connect on and to be connected on. And then I said that this related to mentorship a little bit, right? So an excellent way to improve a various, category of your life is to get a mentor in that specific category. And it can be tempting to think that a mentor is like a solution. Like if I just had the right mentor, then I would be getting the XYZ results that I want. And that's not always the case. What I have found is the mentors that I have in my life have sort of organically arisen because they recognize the actions that I'm taking to get the things that I want, and they have the things that I want, and they want to support me, and that them providing me that support is fulfilling to them. But it's only fulfilling because I take action based on the things that they teach me, right? So mentors can sort of naturally appear, and they will be attracted to you by the action that they see you taking. They'll say, wow, this is someone who's taking action. This is someone who may actually take action on the advice that I give them. So I'll give them advice because I know I'm not just shouting into the void, right? What is repelling to mentors is someone who is looking for like an easy path, a quick fix, someone who is not going to take the advice that they give and put it into action. And so again, I just go back to action being the solution, right? Determine the area of life that you want to improve, start taking action, and you will naturally start to attract positive influences in that domain, and you will repel negative influences in that domain, and you will naturally start to attract mentors in that domain as well. We could probably do a whole nother episode on mentorship. That could be interesting. Maybe I'll do that. One final suggestion that I want to make is, in my life, one of the habits that I've built is having a mastermind group. I did this in college, and I now do this as an adult. I've been a part of a mastermind group for about 3 years. It's a group of 4 men, myself included, that meet weekly, and we share our goals and objectives with each other, and we hold each other accountable to take actions on those objectives, and we give each other advice on how we think that they might improve the actions that they're taking. And a relationship like this is sort of formal, sort of structured. It's I would say maybe a little unusual. I don't think most people are in mastermind groups, but this is a really powerful technique to turbocharge you in the direction that you want your life to go in. And I have gotten just a tremendous amount of value from my mastermind group. I would say one of the biggest values that I've gotten is just a reminder of what I really want. You know, so often life gets busy, right? You just have stuff that occurs, and day to day, I mean, I've got like kids that need me, I've got my wife that needs me, I've got my business that needs me, oh, and also I need to exercise, and then, oh my gosh, it's 9 p.m., I'm tired, I'm going to bed. And so it's so easy to get distracted by all the things that are screaming for your attention. And the value that I get from my mastermind group is the reminder. Oh yeah, this is what I said I want this year. Oh yeah, this is what I said I want this month. Am I actually doing that? If not, why not? You know, is it because I'm distracted? Is it because I'm not making time for it? Or what's the deal? And then I can course correct. And that course correction is key. So anyways, this has been my episode on influences. I hope you have found this helpful. You know, I think my take is nuanced. I encourage you to be very careful and thoughtful about who you let influence your life, because at the end of the day, you are the average of the 5 people you spend time with. Whether you like it or not, you will be the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. And choosing those 5 people consciously is important, while also balancing the nuance of being loyal and the nuance of you know, being a loving and forgiving person. So, hope that was helpful. Ryan Weiss with the Ryan Weiss Show, signing out. Talk to you soon.